My guest today is Jamey Stegmaier, class of 1999. Jamey, how's it going today?
It's going great. Thanks so much for inviting me to join you on this.
It's my pleasure. Can you catch us up on everything that's happened to you since you've left governor school?
Yeah, like you said, I was class of 99. I attended undergrad at Washington University in St. Louis, where I studied international business and Japanese. I spent a year abroad in Japan during that time. And then since then, I've had three careers, three little careers. One, I worked as a project manager at a medical textbook publishing company here in St. Louis. I've stayed in St. Louis the entire time. Then I worked as the director of operations at a facility at Washington University. And over the last 8 years, I've run a board game publishing company called Stonemaier Games.
Excellent. Uh, can you talk about your experience in high school, especially as much as it set you up for success in life? Any skills or strategies you may have learned in high school that you employ today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main takeaways I had from high school, two things really. One was that I really learned to appreciate the value of surrounding myself with people um, who enjoyed the process of learning or enjoyed the process of whatever they were doing. I think that's a major benefit that I had at the governor's school, just being around people who were more interested in learning or at least engaging in class than they were in distracting the teacher or trying to get out of that learning process. I took that for granted for a long time, but I no longer do. And so I try to employ the same strategy in life. If I'm doing something that I'm excited about, whether it's for business or personal or pleasure, that I'm doing it with someone else who is equally excited about it. That's one of the main takeaways. The other takeaway that I definitely learned from the governor's school that I've tried to stick with is the value of basically not procrastinating. Because I learned in the governor's school and in college that uh, I can't wait to the last minute to do something. And at heart, I am a procrastinator, but especially now with the projects that I run, the games that I make take months and years to put together. So I can't just wait until the last minute to throw something together. I have to really work through the process and understand the process and repeat it time and time again and spread out all the different tasks that go into making a game.
In addition to the actual game publishing, I know
Yeah.
anyone who follows you is aware of your incredible productivity around content publication, all the videos you produce, all the blog posts you do. What
Yeah.
simple tools or what tricks or methodologies do you use to actually stay on task and not procrastinate, to work against that natural entropy you have to procrastinate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I have a few different forms of content that I create on a regular basis. One is I have a YouTube channel where I talk about game design, and I do three videos a week there, two during the week and one on the weekend. And I'll get back to that in a second. Then I have a blog that I write, or two blogs that I write. One is a personal blog that I just write for fun, and one is a blog for my company, Stonemaier Games, where I do two blog posts a week, generally I mean, the goal of that blog is to benefit other creators, other entrepreneurs, where I write about crowdfunding, entrepreneurship, sometimes specifically tabletop games, but usually in general, and running a business. And I also do kind of regular like Instagram posts and things like that. And the thing that I found for me, two things really. One is I try to find a schedule for these things that feels right to me. So, for example, if I set a goal for myself to make one YouTube video every day, I would very quickly burn out. But I found fairly early on in that process that doing two short videos with very little editing during the week and then a longer video for the weekend, that was kind of the sweet spot for me. So I found that sweet spot that I actually enjoyed it, that would avoid having me burn out, and I stuck with it. And the other part was me finding the types of content that I like to create and the types of things that I like to talk about or write about, and then find the forum to do it in. I find a lot of people like they want to start a blog or they want to start a YouTube channel, and they kind of have a set idea of what they want it to be, and then they make a few posts about that, and they kind of get tired about it. They end up realizing that they're more excited to write about something else or more excited to film a video about something else. But because they had this other preset idea of this notion of what it needed to be from the beginning, and they're not excited about that anymore, they just stopped doing it altogether. So I kind of learned early on to just be flexible. If my blog changes over time, so be it. I might be more excited to talk about something today than I was in the past. Same with the YouTube channel.
That makes sense. What's changed for you the most this year, either for better or worse?
It's been an interesting year. We're, in case someone's watching this in the future, we're recording this in November now of 2020. So we're about 10 months into the pandemic. And the pandemic, it, uh, it's had an interesting impact on me because I've worked from home. I've run my company from my home for the last 8 years. And so I think a lot of people were maybe used to going to the office. I was very used to working from home. So there was not a big adjustment there. Um, Also, tabletop games are something that you can do at home. And so for a long time, especially during various lockdowns across the US and, responsible self-isolation, people need more activities to do at home than ever before. And so board games have actually done quite well during the pandemic. I'd rather not have a pandemic than board games do well, but it has been decent for my business. And so during this time, I've actually added 2 employees. So I think a lot of companies maybe have had to let people go. Unfortunately, I totally understand why, but we've been fortunate that I added I've been running the company by myself this whole time, pretty much, with a lot of independent contractors. But I was the only full-time employee. But we added a director of communications earlier this year and a director of sales a few months ago, and that has helped my work-life balance quite a bit. And it's also helped, I think, help the company grow at a time where we have been able to do so.
Cool.
Yeah.
You wear a lot of hats, even though you've
Yeah.
hired 2 people now. Like,
Mhm.
how did you learn to do all these things? Like in terms of content production, which is as much just the art of writing good content as it is marketing and project
Yeah.
management. Like, did all that come from your business school education, or did you learn more of it like once you got out and in the real world?
I'm grateful for the time that I had at Washington University, but I can't say that really anything I learned in business school applies to what I do now. Pretty much everything has been through trial and error, trying it myself, trying to start a business and failing, and then trying to start Stonemaier Games using Kickstarter initially. And Kickstarter for me, it was a great way to start a business because it throws you into everything that you need to do to try to run a successful business, and you either fail or you don't. And yeah, so that, I mean, just actually trying it. Also, along the way, I do have to give credit to the other jobs I had along the way. I was a project manager at my first job, so I learned a lot about managing a project and spreading out all these different tasks, managing different people, typesetters and proofreaders and copy editors. I actually waited tables in a few different restaurants in college during the summer, and that taught me a lot about customer service and customer facing customer service, basically. And then my last job as a director of operations, I learned about asking people for money, essentially selling things. We were a nonprofit, but I learned that aspect, and about managing a staff of people. So all these little jobs I had along the way kind of added up to what I do now. But still, I every day I am going to I do make mistakes all the time, and I just learn from them and try to do better the next time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You wrote a book about how to have a successful Kickstarter campaign. Did you ultimately enjoy that? And would you write another book? And if so, on what?
Yeah, I mean, I've had kind of 2 lifelong passions. One was to publish a novel, and one was to publish a board game. The board game part I thought would just never happen. I didn't think it was viable, but I thought I would publish a novel someday. That has never ended up happening, but I did end up getting asked to write a book about crowdfunding and Kickstarter. I enjoy that process. Yeah, I took a lot of content from my blog and broke it into a more, like, the blog is very like, here's a topic. I'm going to write a little bit about this topic. Um, it's almost how to a little bit. And so the book that I ended up writing was a lot more narrative. It kind of told the story of Stonemaier Games from start to finish, but along the way, trying to give people little nuggets of how they could do what I did on Kickstarter. And so, yeah, I did enjoy that process. At this point, I guess I mentioned the novel because someday I want to come back and actually write. Well, I have written a novel, but write a novel with the intent of publishing it. But at this point, running Stonemaier Games, all of my focus is on it. So while I do create all this fun content, I don't really have time to write a book, and I actually don't know if it would be a great use of my time at this point, given the profitability of publishing a new game versus the profitability of and the time it would take to write a book.
Sure.
So that ROI doesn't quite add up at this point.
You have a part of your personal blog is your pet peeves, where you eventually do like a lot of self-reflection. I think it kind of started off more like in the humor space, but I think you get
Yeah.
self-reflective around it too. Did
Yeah.
Megan, you have a long-term relationship, did Megan go through all your pet peeves before meeting you and dating you, or?
Um, I think she has read some of them. We certainly talked about some of them. It I have found through dating throughout my life, including with Megan, that oftentimes when I'm dating someone, they find out that I have this blog that I've maintained for almost 15 years now. I think a long, long time, and usually they like Megan, I think, started to read a few entries and then realized this is a lot. Like it's a lot of stuff, and I'd rather have this come up organically in a conversation than have me learn like the whole life and all the thoughts of this person before I actually get to know them. So she's read some of the posts, but not the older posts. There's just like I think there are over like 2,000, 3,000 posts at this point. I actually have more fun writing the pet please posts now too. I have found over time that when I engage on social media and create stuff, I'd rather add something positive and fun and focus on something that I love rather than something that annoys me or that I'm complaining about, unless I can make it put a humorous twist on it or try to put a humorous twist on it.
Totally. So what classes or subjects, if any, do you think we should have had in high school that we didn't in terms of the curriculum?
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking about today in terms of college because I wrote a blog post today about performance reviews, and I was
Mm.
like, I kind of wish I had been taught how to do this in person when I had a class to teach me this. I do know that I took. I don't even know how kids do this nowadays. Back in our time, like, how did you learn how to type on a keyboard? Did you take a class or did you teach yourself how to do it?
I took a class, failed miserably. They put the paper
Okay.
over your hands, and
Uh,
like I couldn't get it. Wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I just kind of like wondered to myself like, can I touch type now? And I was able
uh,
to. Like I just been doing it long enough like it just came about, yeah.
and I wonder how kids are doing that nowadays. If they're just so immediately exposed to keyboards, so they have to teach themselves. But yeah, I had to take a summer school course to do it because governor school actually did not offer a typing class, and so I hope they do now. If because that to me is like such an essential life skill, perhaps over all the other things I learned in high school. Um, that hopefully that is a class now, or maybe students are just born with that ability now.
Do you have any stories of games that you've tried to publish that just didn't work? Like it was an idea that you were in love with, but it couldn't you couldn't get it to production.
Yeah, I mean, out of like every 100 ideas that I have, most of them just stay ideas. Some of them get to the brainstorming prototyping stage, and oh, there's one. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of examples. One that I came to mind right now is that I designed a game based on Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture. He's one of my favorite architects. And I was just a fan of his work throughout my younger years. And a couple of years ago, I was like, I'll see if I can design a game. I reached out to the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation and found that getting the rights to a Frank Lloyd Wright game was possible. And so I designed a prototype, and it was fine. But I wasn't excited enough to pursue it. But I might return to that someday because I still love his architecture. Yeah.
Very cool. Any final question? Any final thoughts or things I haven't asked you that you want to share with either the alums of Governor School or the former faculty?
Well, yeah, I mentioned that I was fortunate to be, we were fortunate to be at a school where most of the people around us were excited to learn. And I also want to say to the teachers that it seems to me that we were at a school where most of the teachers, if not all the teachers, were excited to teach and were excited about why they were there. Um, so in hindsight, looking back, like I don't remember a lot of exactly what I learned in high school or what I was taught, but I'm so grateful for having students around me who are excited about that and having teachers that wanted to show up there every day and teach us. So that to me, it formed such a wonderful foundation. I'm so lucky that I had that and that we had that at Governor's School. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.